Come on in, guys. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about Survivor Winners at War. Survivor's 40th season is pitting 20 great winners against each other, from strategic masterminds to insane social threats. Each of these winners deserved their win, but what were the moves that got them there? From fancy idle plays to split votes to good old-fashioned social politicking, each winner's signature move is different and goes to show that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Wait, Brian Heidick's not here, is he? Today, I want to count down each winner's best move in anticipation of Winners at War. We'll go chronologically by win, so we'll get to see the game evolve before our very eyes as the mechanics of Survivor get crazier and the resolution gets HD'er. We'll be starting with Season 3 winner Ethan Zohn. Ethan played in Survivor Africa, notable for its harsh conditions and for the first ever tribe swap. Ethan is the social player to end all social players, and it's only fitting that his best move reflect the social element of Survivor. Ethan's biggest move of the game was aligning with Lex and Big Tom in the early days of Boran, clinching an alliance that would carry through getting separated at the tribe swap and get them all the way to the Final Four. In the era of getting voted out third, surviving on the edge of extinction, returning, then putting yourself into Final Four firemaking against Rick Devens, I suppose it might not sound like much. But this alliance was absolutely critical for all three, and given the generational animosity on rival tribe Samburu, allowed them to divide and conquer once the merge hit. Ethan ran the game solely based on his charisma and likability, and it was this ability to make and keep friends that was his biggest boon in the game. The next winner on the board is Sandra Dee Twine, Survivor's first two-time winner. She originally played in Survivor Pearl Islands, the 7th season of the show. Sandra's game was initially defined by her alliance with Rupert and Krista, although her signature move came at Final 5 after both her closest allies had been eliminated. At Final 5, you had Sandra, essentially a lone wolf who hated everyone who blindsided Rupert, Dara, the last remaining member of the Morgan Alliance, Johnny Fairplay and Burton, a pair of villains joined at the hip, and Lil, who was closely aligned with Burton and easily manipulated emotionally. The stage was set for Burton, Fairplay, and Lil to go to the final 3, but Sandra managed to convince the disparate factions of herself, Dara, and Lil to all come together to blindside Burton. Not only does Sandra get revenge for Rupert, she keeps John in the game, who, incredibly, she had a better working relationship with than Burton, and she severs the alliance of Burton and Lil. When Sandra says she votes for, quote, anybody but me, I don't buy it. Her game is smarter than that, and this move shows that she can move the chess pieces around the board just as well as anyone else. Following Pearl Islands, we had Survivor All-Stars, won by Amber Burkich. Amber's defining move is kind of hard to pinpoint since so much of that season is seen through the prism of Boston Rob, and their romance/alliance pretty much puts them as a single unit starting from the very early days of Shapera. But I think Amber's signature move comes at the one tribal council she was separated from Boston Rob after she escaped a surefire elimination via the swap screw to end all swap screws. At Final 10, the All-Stars swap tribes via random buff draw for one last elimination before the merge. Incredibly, everyone on Shapera went to Mogo Mogo, and everyone on Mogo Mogo went to Shapera, except Amber, who was the only person who stayed on their original tribe. This meant Amber went from sitting pretty in the majority alliance at Shapera to being the most obvious boot ever. And yet, Amber managed to weasel her way out of this, pledging loyalty to Kathy and Lex and imploring them to vote out Jerry instead. This actually worked, and Lex and Kathy took out Jerry on faith that Amber and Rob would join up with them at the merge. Of course, Lex and Kathy became the first 2 members of the jury instead, and Amber and Rob went to the end. Now we're jumping forward a few seasons to Season 11, Survivor Guatemala, won by Danny Boatwright. Danny's a great social player who kept a low profile, so it's fitting that her biggest move is all in her social maneuvering, particularly making a critical alliance with Rafe, then eliminating him at Final 3. Danny entered the merge with her alliance down 6-4, and one by one they were picked off, until she was the last one left. But that whole time, she was working hard on building bonds with one of the power players on the Nakum Alliance, the aforementioned Rafe. Danny's alliance with Rafe was able to get her through a few critical votes after her allies Brandon, Bobby John, and Gary were gone, and slowly but surely, Danny was able to inch her way into the power dynamics of the tribe. To top it off, Danny and Rafe made a deal to take each other to Final 2, essentially assuring Danny was going to the end. When Danny won final immunity, a very conflicted Rafe released her from that promise in front of the jury, giving her the go-ahead to vote him out and take the much less like Stephanie to the end instead. It was this alliance that saved her from a bad numbers draw at the merge and got her deep. Then Rafe essentially quit so she could win. Now that's social manipulation. Survivor Cook Island's winner, Yul Kwon, is next up. Yul may be one of the most calculating people to ever play Survivor, and his winning move on Survivor's 13th season makes perfect sense in that context. At Final 9, Yul's alliance, the I-24, is outnumbered. Yul flashes his idol to perennial flip-flopper Jonathan Penner to get him to flip to their side, giving them the numbers. This is some serious mob boss stuff, and this isn't even Yul's final form. At Final 7, it's the I-24 plus Jonathan, and then outsiders Adam and Parvati. Adam comes to Yul and pleads his case for him and Parvati to outlast Penner. His argument is basically, Penner is a weasel, just let us get one step further than him. Yul concedes and throws Adam a bone and votes out Jonathan, which ultimately earned Adam's vote at Final Tribal, which in a 5-4 vote split turned out to be $1 million move. Gangster. We're jumping forward a bit to Season 16, Survivor Micronesia, Parvati Shallow's winning season. Parvati set herself up pretty well early on in the game, gaining a majority alliance with Amanda and Sari on the Favorites tribe, then scooping up Alexis and Natalie at the swap. But her best move came when she and her alliance blindsided Ozzy right after the merge. Ozzy had a hidden immunity idol, and at this point in Survivor history was the best physical player of all time. And still is. There was a time during the season when Ozzy simply felt unstoppable. He went all the way to the end on his first season, he had an immunity idol, he was a challenge beast, anyone who targeted him went home shortly thereafter. He was a Micronesian king. But at Final 9, Parvati, Sari, Natalie, and Alexis enlist outsider Jason to help them pull off a blindside with the thinnest of margins to take out the biggest threat in the game. Ozzy didn't see the blindside from some of his closest allies coming, and got sent to the jury in what is, in my opinion, still a top 5 blindside. And clearly, Eliza agrees. While Sari was also certainly a crucial factor in this vote, it was Parvati's connections to Natalie and Alexis that allowed this move to blossom in the first place, so she deserves a whole heck of a lot of credit. Survivor Heroes vs. Villains is Sandra's second winning season, so it's only fair she get a second segment. And yet again, Sandra undersells herself by saying she'll vote for anyone but her. At Final 12, there are 7 villains left in the game, and Sandra and Courtney are very much on the outs. Russell Hantz has taken complete control of the villains tribe and flipped Coach and Jerry on their old allies, convincing them to vote out Boston Rob. Sandra is feeling the heat, and knowing that Russell is both in the driver's seat and extremely paranoid, plants a Sandra seed right in Russell's ear that Coach wishes he hadn't flipped on Boston Rob after all, and that he wishes he'd taken out Russell instead. The paranoia drives Russell insane, and he railroads his alliance into taking out Coach against their better judgment. The villains lose the next 2 immunity challenges and vote out Coach, then Courtney. Had Sandra not completely gamed Russell, she and Courtney would have been out instead, and Sandra would likely have been the second member of the jury instead of the first 2-time winner. Sandra certainly made a lot of moves later on to position herself as the anti-Russell option to a jury that despised him, but it was this move that got her to that position in the first place. And since we're talking about Survivor Legends, let's talk about Boston Rob, who won the 22nd season Redemption Island. A lot of people like to discount Boston Rob's win here since it was his 4th time and he was playing against newbies, and that's pretty fair. But Rob played perhaps the most dominant game in Survivor history right here. His signature move was keeping his alliance in check with the buddy system, essentially maintaining that every member of the Ometepe alliance could only go off in 2s, never alone, to ensure that no one was speaking with anyone from the rival tribe Zapatera. It's a testament to both Rob's charisma and the fear he inspires that he actually got people to go along with this. It was also clever that he basically removed roadblocks to his tribal dominance, like Francesca and Christina, early on. Rob's Iron Fist style of leadership will likely never be replicated again, and it is truly insane an entire tribe let him get away with it. We're going to jump forward one season to Sophie Clark and her winning game in Season 23, South Pacific. Sophie's signature move is, well, not making a move. Sophie was in the dominant Upolu alliance come the merge, and her alliance was picking off Savai with a little help from flip-flopping Cochrane. The correct play here for Upolu was to not rock the boat. Everyone on Savai simply had to go home. Keith and Whitney were a romantic pair that had to be split up. Ozzy was a massive challenge and jury threat. Jim was a strategist who played with reckless abandon. And Dawn was Dawn. And yet, at every turn, Sophie's allies wanted to pull off some big moves to turn on one of their own for no real reason other than it would be fun. Most notably, Albert was ready to switch things up just about every vote. But Sophie kept her wild cards all in line and frog marched Albert and Coach straight to the final three. So I know it's kind of silly to call someone's signature move not making one, but in Sophie's case, that was the right call and won her the game. Next up is someone else who kept their alliance in line, Kim Spradlin in Survivor One World. It's hard to pinpoint a signature move of Kim's since she did literally everything correct from hour one. Like Rob and Sophie, she ruled her alliance and got her desired final three to the end. And in a men versus women season, not only did she have the women wrapped around her finger, but she had most of the men wrapped around her finger as well. Case in point, at Final 10, Kim's getting pretty tired of Troyzan's antics, so she decides it's time for him to skedaddle on off the island. But Troyzan, as one of about 3 people that season who weren't completely in Kim's pocket, is trying to get her out. He's got an idol and confides to Jay that he's considering playing it to get Kim out. Jay immediately goes and tattles to Kim, and Kim switches things up last minute to pin the votes on Jay instead. This accomplished 2 things. 1, it flushed Troyzan's idol, meaning Kim's only serious competition had no real protection. And 2, it got rid of Jay, meaning everyone's attention could now be focused on the game, rather than distractions. Soon after, an idolless Troyzan goes home, and Kim cakewalks to the end without much more difficulty. It was a masterstroke in a game filled with them. Next up is Denise Tapley, winner of Survivor Philippines. Denise is thus far the only winner to attend every single tribal council, so that in and of itself could be her signature move. But let's get a little more in depth. Her gameplay shined best in the early days of Mat Singh. To start the game, Denise was on a tribe of 6 and connected instantly with Malcolm, a wise move given that Mat Singh was imploding quickly. After Zane essentially eliminated himself, it's a long story. Denise was left with 2 duos, Russell and Roxy and Malcolm and Angie. As they lost immunity after immunity, Denise picked off the least essential members, Roxy and Angie, ensuring that she was both Russell and Malcolm's closest ally. When they lost the 4th immunity challenge in a row, Denise was perfectly positioned as the swing vote between the 2 powerhouse players. These were serious endgame moves Denise was having to pull off on day 9, and it's a testament to her game that she was able to maintain this high level of play for another 30 days. After a string of newbie winners, let's get back to what we really love to see. People winning on their 3rd shot. Tyson Apostle won Survivor's 27th season, Blood vs. Water, where pairs of loved ones were split up and pit against each other. Tyson's girlfriend Rachel was voted out early, but at the merge, some of his closest allies were pairs that were still in the game together, namely brothers Aris and Vetus and mother-daughter duo Tina and Katie. Tyson realized that being aligned with pairs would make him very much a 5th wheel, so he worked with other people whose partners had been eliminated to take out what used to be his closest allies. That strategy paid off, and Aris, Vetus, and Tina were voted out back to back to back, and Tyson's flop from 5th wheel to top dog earned him a near unanimous win. Survivor Cagayan, Survivor's 28th season, was won by Tony Vlachos, my personal favorite winner on the board. Please don't flame out early. Tony can only be described as a wrecking ball. He weaponized his immunity idol, he built spy shacks and watched people talk about him, he spoke llama, so it's surprising that Tony's best move is purely social play. At Final 3, Wu wins immunity and can take Tony, who will destroy him at Final Tribal Council, or Cass, who's drawing dead with a jury that hates her. Tony, using whatever was left in that bag of tricks he had, spends the afternoon in Woo's ear and single-handedly talks Woo out of taking Cass and into taking him. I'm genuinely still not sure how Tony managed to pull this off, and it remains to this day one of the most impressive examples of social manipulation ever seen on Survivor. For all of Tony's wild, advantage-laden gameplay, it was simple words that won him the $1 million. For Survivor's 29th season, they revisited the Blood vs. Water well yet again for Survivor San Juan del Sur, won by Natalie Anderson. Natalie's game really turned on the afterburners around Final 7 or so, and I would not begrudge anyone who picked the Baylor or Alec boots as Natalie's signature move. But I think the move that best defines how Natalie plays is her lying in wait and revenge voting out John Mish at Final 6. John and his fiancée Jacqueline were tight with Natalie and her close ally Jeremy, but betrayed them both shortly after the merge when they blindsided Jeremy. Natalie was furious, but didn't let it show. She desperately wanted revenge, but knew she had to wait until the rest of the Minority Alliance was taken out. So, like a snake in the grass, Natalie went dormant, watching and waiting for the right time to strike. That came at Final 6 when Natalie, Keith, Missy, and Baylor split the votes between John and Jacqueline, resulting in a 2-2-2 tie that ended with John going out on the revote. If she struck too soon, the Minority Alliance might have gotten a foothold. If she struck too late, she would have missed her shot and John would have won. Natalie's timing was impeccable, and it won her the game. Speaking of Jeremy Collins, he came back for Season 31, Cambodia, as one of 20 second chancers. Jeremy pioneered a strategy we see quite a bit now, using what he called meat shields. Meat shields are essentially players who are more threatening than you for one reason or another, and which conventional wisdom might say should be voted out for those very qualities. But Jeremy chose to align himself with those players, like Savage, Joe, and Fishbach, in an effort to obscure his own threat level. By putting power players out in front, they took the bullets when things went south, like when Andrew Savage was idled out by Kelly Wentworth. Not only did this protect Jeremy, but it assured that a lot of his allies went to the jury bench without any blood on his hands, meaning he had champions on the jury to sing his praises instead of stew bitterly. It's a great strategy and a reminder that having your allies get blindsided might just be the best thing to ever happen to you. Next, we've got Michelle Fitzgerald, winner of Survivor Co. Wrong. Michelle is the epitome of social player. She simply manages her allies with incredible skill. And it's hard to underestimate how simply likable she is. Michelle's best move was realizing she was on a sinking ship and abandoning it to further her game. At Final 7, Michelle and Julia are very much on the outs of a majority alliance that consists of Aubrey, Joe, Sydney, and Ty. But being the incredible social player she is, Michelle was able to worm her way into crucial conversations had between these four, and she knew it was simply time to abandon her closest ally Julia, ingrain herself in a new majority alliance, and work on creating bonds there. Julia went home, then Jason, and Michelle went all the way to the end and won, earning the votes of her former allies who didn't begrudge her for flipping when she needed to. Our next winner is Adam Klein, winner of Survivor's 33rd season, Millennials vs. Gen X. The specifics of Millennials vs. Gen X get really granular, so bear with me. At Final 10, there's a tie, then a rock draw, and Adam's alliance of himself, Hannah, Ken, David, and Jessica lose that rock draw when Jessica draws the wrong rock and gets eliminated. It seems like Zeke would take complete control of the game, but Adam convinced Will to flip to his side to eliminate Zeke, and then thanked Will and sent him home on the very next vote. Essentially, Adam turned an enemy into an ally, used them for a vote, then voted them out in turn, turning a one-vote disadvantage into a one-vote advantage. Adam, Ken, Hannah, and David then went straight to the Final Four. Adam's social skills are super underrated, and he exploited Will's big move-itis perfectly. Fittingly, Adam's signature move combines social play and strategy seamlessly. Cop-turned-criminal Sara Cena is the winner of Survivor's 34th season, Game Changers. And wow, what a win it is. Sara played a truly incredible game, both socially and strategically, and like Adam, her signature move combines both. At Final 9, fan favorite game changer Sierra Dawn Thomas confides to Sara that she has a legacy advantage, which would give the holder immunity at Final 6, but must be willed to another player if the holder is voted out. As soon as Sara is told about this, she begins marshaling the troops to take Sierra out, because she wants that advantage for herself. She gets enough people to take out Sierra, but as the votes are read, Sara feigns surprise. Sierra doesn't know that Sara completely betrayed her and wills her the legacy advantage, which Sara then used to get through the Final 6 advantage get-in. Incredible strategic and social play. I can only imagine the look on Sierra's face when she realized she'd been had. For Season 35, Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers, you can pick an idol play, any idol play, by Ben Driebergen. Okay, I kid, but Ben was on the outs for much of the post-merge and won his way to the end with bombastic idol plays and immunity wins. His biggest idol play was at Final 7 when he became the first person to catch every vote at Tribal Council and negate all of them with an idol, voting out Lauren Rimmer with a single vote. Not only did this take out a major power player in the game, but this sort of stuff plays very well to the jury. It shored up his underdog status with them, and afterwards, he'd have the jury eating out of the palm of his hand at every tribal council. Ben played very well with idols, and he also understood the theatrical element of playing that up to the jury. Completely switching gears from super advantage-heavy gameplay, we're going to Ghost Island winner Wendel Holland. Wendel is one of the best social players in recent years, and his best move was the friends he made along the way. Crucially, Wendel made tight bonds with both Dominic and Laurel. Wendel's alliance with Dominic was a partnership for the ages, getting both of them deep into the game back-to-back, and his tight bond with Laurel kept her from flipping on them when she had ample opportunity and reason to do so. Wendel got to the end with his closest allies, and when he and Dom tied at the final vote, 0-vote finalist Laurel became the first person demoted to member of the jury and cast a winning vote for Wendel. I know he's got an idol play under his belt, but Wendel showed that good old-fashioned social play is still a winning strategy for getting to the end and getting votes. Finally, we've got Nick Wilson, our most recent winner on the board from Season 37, David vs. Goliath. Like Adam, Nick is a student of the game and pulled off a move that had not yet been done in 37 seasons of Survivor. At Final 12, Nick's alliance of underdogs was down 7-5. They had an idol, but so did the majority alliance of Goliaths. So Nick devised a way for them to have their cake and eat it too. The majority alliance doesn't have enough votes to split, so they put all 7 of their votes on Christian, which is negated with an idol play courtesy of Davey. Angelina knows she was the David's target, so she gets an idol played on her as well. But in a truly wild play, the David alliance split their votes from the minority, ensuring that one of their targets would be sent to the jury. They put 3 of their votes on pro wrestler John, landing a blindside that was, as Nick put it, off the top rope. It's moves like this that are why I truly love Survivor, and show that the game is still evolving before our very eyes. Well, got nothing else for you. There's the signature moves of all 20 winners at war. To make my signature move getting views on YouTube, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.